A mechanic in California once pulled apart a BMW K100 at 275,000 miles. The factory honing marks were still there, crisp, untouched, like the engine had barely been used. BMW introduced this engine family in 1983. Versions of it ran until 2009, 26 years. They called it the Flying Brick. And the whole time they were building it, some people inside the company quietly wished it didn't exist. This is the story of the most durable motorcycle engine ever put into mass production, and why BMW killed it anyway. The sound that announces it. Before you ever see a flying brick coming, you hear it. There's a sound these bikes make, a high, persistent whine that starts the moment you hit the key and never completely goes away. Owners call it the K-whine. They say you can identify another one pulling into a parking lot from 200 meters away. It sounds like nothing else on two wheels. Part sewing machine, part turbine, part wine glass being rubbed. And the reason it sounds like that is actually a perfect introduction to how the whole engine thinks. The primary source is the Bosch fuel pump sitting inside the tank. It runs at full pressure constantly, pumping enough fuel for wide open throttle all the time, then returning the excess back to the tank. It is a car system on a motorcycle. The pump never idles down. That steady, high-pitched scream you hear at a traffic light, that's the fuel pump telling you it's ready for anything, even when you're not. Layer on top of that, a helical gear train inside the engine driving the alternator, clutch, and oil pump simultaneously, and a 460-watt alternator that adds its own note to the chord. 3 mechanical voices, 1 unmistakable sound. BMW riders on air-cooled boxers called these bikes K-whiners when they first appeared in 1983. It was not meant as a compliment. It became one anyway. Why it never wears out. Let's get into the science of why that 275,000-mile engine looked new. Start with the cylinder bores. Most engines use cast iron liners inside aluminum blocks. Iron is strong, but it expands and contracts differently from aluminum at temperature, which causes microscopic stress cycles that accumulate over decades into genuine wear. BMW chose a different path. The K100's bores are machined directly into the aluminum block and then electroplated with a compound called Scanamet, BMW's specific application of what the industry broadly calls nickel, a nickel silicon carbide matrix. Nickel carries the current during plating. Silicon carbide is ceramic, extremely hard, harder than most hardened steel, harder than chrome. Here's the part that matters. The coating is porous at the microscopic level, not visibly porous, gaps between individual silicon carbide particles just a few microns across. Those gaps trap and hold oil, so when the piston rings slide over the bore surface, they're riding on a near-continuous film of oil, not scraping on bare metal. The consequence of this is counterintuitive. The rings wear, but the cylinder almost never does. The bore stays dimensionally perfect while the consumable parts do what consumable parts are supposed to do, which is exactly why that mechanic in California found factory honing marks still present at 275,000 miles. And then there is the geometry. This is the part, by the way, that made some people inside BMW uncomfortable, because an engine built like this does not need replacing. The K100 runs a 67mm bore and a 70mm stroke, longer stroke than bore. What engineers call undersquare. Most sport engines go the other direction. Wider bore, shorter stroke, because that lets you spin faster and make more peak power. BMW went the other way on purpose. A longer stroke generates torque through leverage on the crankshaft. You don't need high revs to get power moving, which means the engine spends its entire working life at lower RPM, lower stress, lower heat. The reciprocating forces inside an engine scale with the square of RPM. Cut the revs in half and you've cut those forces to 1/4. A K-series bike at motorway cruising speed is running at roughly 4,000 to 5,000 revolutions per minute. At that point, the engine is barely trying. The piston speed, the rod loads, the bearing pressures, all of them are operating far below the design limit. It is like a diesel lorry engine that spends its whole life in third gear. The thing will simply never be stressed enough to wear out. There is one more durability factor that gets overlooked. The engine faces left, the cylinder head, the spark plugs, the cam chain, the fuel injectors, all of it is on the left side of the bike, completely exposed. No fairing removal, no buried hardware. You can do a full service on the top end of this engine with the bike on its side stand in a home garage. BMW pitched the K100 as one of the easiest motorcycle engines in the world to work on. That is not just marketing, it is engineering. And it means these engines get serviced because the owners are not afraid of them. If you are thinking about picking one up and doing your own work on it, the Climber K Series manual covers every K-bike from 1985 through 1997. It is the one the forums reference constantly, and it is linked in the description. The one thing that kills them. So what does kill a flying brick? Because something always fails eventually. And the answer is not the engine. There are 3 spline connections in the K-Series drivetrain. Transmission input shaft, gearbox output, drive shaft to final drive. Steel splines meshing together, transmitting thousands of miles of torque. When the lubricant on those splines degrades, and it always degrades eventually, the surfaces begin to fret. Microscopic relative motion between the mating teeth creates a wear pattern called fretting corrosion. You cannot feel it, you cannot hear it, until one day at 70 miles per hour on the motorway, the spline strips and you lose all drive to the rear wheel. BMW made this worse early on by specifying the wrong lubricants. Copper anti-seize, a Texaco grease that softened and migrated at engine temperature. It took years for the community to crack the right formula. A long-distance rider named Paul Glaves eventually worked it out. His solution, a 50-50 mix of Honda Moly 60 paste and a molybdenum disulfide grease. Reapply every 10,000 miles or every rear tire change, and whichever comes first. The forums treat this like scripture. Honda Moly 60 has since been discontinued. The modern equivalent is a high moly assembly paste, about 65% molybdenum content, which is what you need to handle the contact pressure in those spline joints. There's a link in the description. Follow that ritual and the splines last indefinitely. Ignore it, and the bike will eventually end your ride in the most undramatic way possible. Not smoke, not fire, not seizure, just silence, and a very long wait for the recovery truck. The law enforcement test. Here's the flying brick durability story that nobody talks about. In 1994, BMW Motorrad USA's national sales manager, Frank Stevens, went after one of the most demanding fleet contracts in American motorcycling, the California Highway Patrol. The CHP was the benchmark account. If you could sell to the CHP, you could sell to any department in the country. They tested bikes harder than any race circuit. Constant high-speed patrol, idling in traffic for hours, drops, abuse. And then they serviced them at mandated intervals and expected them to come back identical. The contract originally specified a useful service life of 60,000 miles. BMW K100 RTPs started coming back for routine service, then going back out, then coming back again. 60,000 miles passed, then 80,000. The bikes kept going. The CHP raised the threshold to 100,000 miles. The bikes kept going past that too. BMW Group published their own retrospective on this in 2025 as part of their 50th anniversary series for BMW of North America. Direct quote from Stevens: "The CHP eventually stopped defining a hard mileage ceiling at all, because the bikes kept exceeding whatever number they set." Today, BMW Authority motorcycles are in service across more than 150 countries and 550 U.S. law enforcement agencies. The K-Series engines that proved that reliability were the foundation of every one of those contracts. The CHP didn't know they were testing the most durable motorcycle engine in production history. They were just doing their job. The engine just kept passing. The people who rode them to ruin. In 1993, a community called IBMWR was born on the internet. The Internet BMW Riders Mailing List, one of the first motorcycle communities to exist entirely online. For 31 years, it was where K-bike owners went to diagnose problems, swap parts, share high-mileage records, and argue about the right spline grease. On February 15, 2024, it shut its mailing list down permanently after 31 years. The archives were saved, the community migrated, but something about a 31-year-old internet community keeping a 40-year-old motorcycle alive says something about what these bikes do to people. Morton's BMW in Fredericksburg, Virginia keeps a list. Their high-mileage registry tracks K-Series owners who have crossed documented mileage thresholds, not estimated. Documented. Odometer photos, service records, independent verification. Paul Glaves, 300,000 miles on a K75, the same man who worked out the spline lube formula. He didn't just theorize about longevity, he lived it. Voni Glaves and Artis Kellerman both cleared 900,000 cumulative BMW miles, not on one bike, but the K-Series was central to both records. And then there is Tim Halpin. Halpin rode 282,000 miles on a single K1200 LT, not cumulative, one bike. The same flying brick engine from the first mile to the last. He was working toward his 500,000-mile cumulative BMW award when he died. BMW presented it posthumously. 1 week after the ceremony, he was gone. That is not a number. That is a life. Built around a machine that kept showing up the same way Tim Halpin kept showing up. Quiet, reliable, and still running when everything else had changed. The community that grew up around these bikes has a particular character. It is not loud. It is not tribal in the way Harley culture can be. It is more like the culture that forms around long-haul truck drivers, or surgeons, or anyone who has spent real time with a machine and learned to trust it completely. They track their mileage the way pilots log hours. They know their spline intervals the way a surgeon knows dosage. And they look at high mileage numbers the way everyone else looks at trophies. If you're finding this story as compelling as I do, hit subscribe. Because every week on this channel, we go deep on the machines that actually meant something, the ones that got under people's skin and stayed there. You won't want to miss the next one. And if you've ever owned a K series or you're sitting on one right now, drop your mileage in the comments. I genuinely want to see the numbers. The brick goes underground. BMW discontinued the last Flying Brick engine in 2009, and for about 5 years after that, donor K100s were selling for under $1,500 at weekend markets and online classifieds. Nobody wanted them. Then the custom cafe racer scene found them. Strip the bodywork off a K100 and you have something unusual. A clean, low, longitudinal engine that doubles as a structural member of the frame. No ugly bolt-on bracket arrangements. The engine is the chassis spine. Combined with that long, flat profile and 80% parts commonality between the K75 and K100 families, the whole platform is a builder's dream. Builders in Munich, Lisbon, Tokyo, and Portland discovered this simultaneously sometime around 2015, and the prices started climbing. In April 2024, a professional cafe racer build on a 1988 K100 sold for $26,350 through Classic.com. That's not a one-off anomaly. High-quality professional K-series builds now routinely list between $15,000 and $29,000, and they sell. In 2023, a Munich shop called Motoism, working with a design studio called Impulse, took a 1983 K100 and rebuilt it from scratch using 3D scanning and 3D printed carbon-reinforced components. Öhlins rear suspension, Brembo brakes, a GPR titanium exhaust, LEDDRLs made from laser-cut translucent acrylic that looks like the bike is lit from the inside. They call it the Ultimate K. Founders Philipp Wolk, Matthias Pittner, and Ben Ott. And the reason the frame could take all of that hardware without modification is that the original 1983 engine was dimensionally precise enough 40 years later to build a modern motorcycle around. There is a dark irony in this. Inside BMW in the late 1990s, there were engineers and executives who saw the Flying Brick as the wrong kind of BMW. Too agricultural, too ugly, too different from the elegant R-Series twins that defined the brand. They wanted something more modern, more powerful, more German in the contemporary sense. They got the K1200S in 2005, 167 horsepower, a brilliant motorcycle. And 40 years later, nobody is building $26,000 cafe racers around a K1200S. What BMW learned and what they didn't. The physics reason BMW replaced the Flying Brick is straightforward. A longitudinal engine, crankshaft running front to back, cannot grow its cylinder bore without physically lengthening the engine, which lengthens the wheelbase. The K100's 67mm bore had grown to 73mm over 14 years of development. 6mm in 14 years. Sport engines need much bigger bores than that to spin fast enough for modern power targets. The K1200S's transverse engine had a 79mm bore, immediately, without needing to stretch the wheelbase at all. The physics were simply different and better for high-power applications. But here is what BMW did not fully anticipate. They believed that the buyers who loved the Flying Brick would follow the horsepower numbers to the new transverse platform. Some did. But a significant portion of the old K-bike faithful simply stopped buying new BMWs. Not because the new bikes were worse. The K1200S and K1600 are magnificent machines. But because the specific thing those riders had bonded with, the undersquare long-stroke character, the turbo diesel torque wave, that mechanical whine, the knowledge that the engine would run longer than they would. None of that transferred. You cannot replicate 275,000-mile factory honing marks in a modern engine. Not because modern engineers are worse, because modern engines are optimized for a different kind of excellence. Peak horsepower, throttle response, power to weight, all legitimate goals. The Flying Brick was optimized for something harder to measure. How long can you keep going without stopping? In February 2024, IBMWR, the Internet BMW Writers mailing list, shut down after 31 years. The archives were preserved, the members scattered to forums and Facebook groups. But that original community, built around the original Flying Brick, is gone. The bikes, though, the bikes are not gone. In 2026, there are K-series engines with over 400,000 miles on the odometer still being ridden as daily transport. There are ex-police K75 RTPs that did 100,000 hard fleet miles, got sold at auction, got stripped and rebuilt into café racers, and are now doing another 100,000. There are 1,983 K100s that have outlasted 3 sets of owners and show no signs of stopping. The mechanic in California who found those 275,000-mile factory honing marks said something afterward that has stayed with the K-bike community. He said the engine looked like it had been built by people who expected it to be examined someday and wanted the examination to find nothing wrong. That is what the Flying Brick is, an act of engineering conscience. Built not for the horsepower test or the press launch or the sales chart, built for the inspection 275,000 miles later when someone finally takes it apart. BMW wanted an engine that could compete with Japan in 1983. Joseph Fritzenwenger and his team gave them something that will still be passing inspections in 2083. The brick flies on. If you want to understand where this engine came from, why BMW was desperate enough in 1979 to lay a Peugeot engine on its side and call it a motorcycle, that story is up next.